Hey everyone. Yeah, I know I'm late on this one. It's just one of those things where with no manga in order to review this week, I figured I may as well just take my time and not really bother stressing all that much on getting this review out on time or whatnot. But okay, so I may as well get one of my big nitpicks out of the way first, which is the title of the episode is a little misleading. Like, to most of us One Piece vets who have grown accustomed to how the anime does things now, this is pretty much bog standard, but for the more uninitiated, that title can be a little deceiving, as it almost could be assumed as the end of the battle with Kaido. But knowing that, you could argue something even more important happened in this episode, which is to say Wano is finally free of Orochi's tyranny. And the thing is, when I first read this in the manga, it was at a time where I was growing to be considerably annoyed with Orochi's character. So by the time we got to this moment where Denjiro cuts him down, I'm like, finally he's dead. Like, I didn't have all that much of a reaction to it. I'm like, thank God he's out of our hair, we don't have to deal with him. But again, upon revisiting this moment in the anime, there is an ironic twist of fate to how Orochi goes out, which is that even after assuming the mantle of Shogun, he spent his entire life living in the fear and in the shadow of the Kozuki, exacting his revenge upon all who he had deemed were responsible for wronging his family name. But in reality, the ones who ultimately caused his greatest downfall were those he saw as his closest confidants next to Kanjuro: Kyoshiro, who was actually Denjiro, and Hiyori, who was hiding in plain sight as Komurasaki. Like in Komurasaki's case, in Hiyori's case, Komurasaki was the image of a woman he genuinely loved, both in their own way, but in both their own way. Both of them were responsible for cutting Orochi down, and to my knowledge from reading the manga, I believe a lot of those flashback sequences are anime-only editions, but more importantly, they do a lot to enhance Orochi's final moments, and in my opinion, give his death much more of an impact than how I felt when reading the manga, where I just kind of dismissed them outright. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna say I feel sorry for him. I'm not gonna feel sorry for him. I definitely felt more emotionally attached to his death in the anime than I did in the manga. Again, it's probably just all the animation, the music. That's probably what does it. But it's just these little things I think do help in some way. But okay, and yeah, and as an aside, everything about this episode was just fucking beautiful. Like, art, animation, music. Like, this is one of those episodes that's hitting all the right cylinders to create a beautiful piece of an episode. Hell, even the transitions, yes, I'm saying it right now, even the transitions of the episode are amazing. Particularly the one I liked, obviously, is the one that happens after Denjiro cuts Orochi down, and you see the kanji floating upwards across, and you see a transition back to the festival and the lantern boats. Like, I don't use this term often, but that was masterfully handled. Like, that was like one of the most beautiful transitions I've ever seen in anime. And yes, I'm praising a goddamn transition. Sue me. And that's another thing. Whether it's because of the music or something else, the anime ultimately did make me care for the people of Wano in this episode and just their pure, raw desire to be free. And now, in a sense, those dreams have more or less come true, have become true and become reality with Orochi's death. As now it's all about taking Kaido out to truly put a bookend on this story of Wano being subjugated. With that said, there is another side to this coin I have to unfortunately address once again, which is, for as wholesome and amazing as this episode was, once again Monosuke kind of comes out as the weakest part of it. And honestly, this is a problem that has just kept bleeding over for all the way back. Not only with the anime, but it's something that's been bleeding over from the manga into the anime. Which is to say, I think Oda had some. Which is to say, this is one of those watching this episode, I think really made me realize. I think Oda had some problems in properly setting this climax up, because throughout a large majority of this back half, both in manga and in anime form, Momonosuke took forever just to get his act together. And it's even worse in the anime with this episode, because they waited until the end of the episode, which in a sense I do get why. You gotta build tension and hype, so you gotta leave it on a cliffhanger for next week. But it's like one of those things that just, it doesn't translate well. And I can't help but think that this is one of those, like don't get me wrong, I know that there are many problems that people have with Wano, but I feel like this is one of the biggest ones that Oda had, which is he just didn't know how to set this climax up and how to make I guess proper use of Momonosuke. Like Momonosuke in the back half of this whole thing just felt like it kind of just got tossed aside a bit in some way. But yeah. With that said, though, I want to leave this review off with my expectations for future episodes, like things I would like to see but just don't know if I'm gonna get it. And honestly, for as crazy as it sounds, after having just ripped into the slow-paced Momonosuke stuff went on, I wouldn't mind a couple filler episodes in the style of what they did with Post Enies Lobby, but rather than having focus on the Straw Hats have in their kind of day-to-day lives in Wano, and just kind of then their day-to-day like lives in Enies Lobby, and not necessarily that, but more so I would like more so like a little bit of a lot more aftermath. I would like a lot more aftermath episodes of Wano. A lot of aftermath, I guess, filler episodes of Wano that will help kind of like just kind of fill in a few gaps of things that were left unresolved in Wano that Oda didn't really touch on. Now, that's kind of what I want, but now if Oda Toei does do this, it becomes that kind of becomes a question of how much aftermath filler are we going to get? Because if I'm being honest, with where the manga is now, I'm almost certain that a particular character that was obviously introduced in the manga right now is actually going to help with the smile problem. So I don't know if they can cover that in a filler, but if there isn't anything Oda plans to cover or he forgot about in the manga with Wano, then again, just put it as a aftermath filler episode, because it feels like there's a lot of potential to fill a few gaps in Wano. It's just a matter of actually doing it and what can be covered and what can't. And it sounds weird, but it's the first time you will ever hear me say that. But I feel there's gonna be a wasted potential if they don't do this. Again, I know it sounds fucking weird as shit, but I don't know. I feel like a little bit of filler might kind of help the end, might kind of help how this arc wraps up in the anime a bit. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll, push the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share it around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime signing off. Later, everyone.